Hello, everyone. Mankey here, and welcome back to the Sports Channel. Today, or by the way, yesterday, we just watched four Europa semifinals, both in the Europa League and the Conference League. Now, of course, the second legs will be taking place next week in 6 days' time of recording. And also, welcome everybody to May. I hope you're going to have a wonderful month, and it's going to be the most fascinating month ever because champions will be crowned, hearts will be broken, and all that jazz. So let's just begin the review from yesterday's games with the All Premier League semifinals between Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa in the City Ground. Chris Wood was the only goal on the penalty that I believe is a penalty. I think it is a penalty. It just depends on if the ball were to go out. It did not go out. One of the offenders decided to raise his hand, of course, and that is a no-no, especially in the modern day rules of a handball, which we're all still confused about. Chris Wood still in the penalty over Emi Martinez, who was having an incredible night in the sticks, along with him and Ortega. I mean, him and Ortega just absolutely traded blows to seeing which incredible keeper and having a great night. And Martinez with an amazing save across the line with a wild stretch hand. And dude, you can just he is, by the way, he's a World Cup winning goalkeeper, and he's probably like the favorite to win best goalkeeper in the world in the World Cup again. So I think it's going to be fascinating. But in a game of this tightness, the game of this closure between two familiar teams from a Premier League, it is not an enforced get it done at the City Ground. Now, do I believe that that means Aston Villa will come back and win? Of course, I do. I think this is going to be a long, long 90 minutes at Villa Park for Nottingham Forest to challenge. And to be honest, Aston Villa did not play a particularly great game by their standards. I mean, this team is the top four team in the Premier League, and they play like this. It's just not good enough on an Unai Emery team. An Unai Emery team should be better than this. They had chances, don't get me wrong. They had pretty much chances, but yeah, I just feel like in the game, and they did not show up. But here's the stats for this game. Possession 50-50 in favor of both teams. 10-11 shots in favor of Aston Villa. 5 to 4 shots on target. 1.56 to 0.79. That is pretty much the huge difference. I mean, 0.79 XG goal, that's just not good enough, of course. Not good enough from Aston Villa team. Accurate passes. It is 331 with an 85% accurate passes to 328 with an 87% accurate passes. 11 to 7 fouls in favor of Aston Villa. 1 yellow card for Aston Villa. 5 to 7 corners, 7 in favor of Aston Villa. 4 to 4 keeper saves. And then 17 to 15 tackles in favor of Nottingham Forest. 32 to 15 clearances in favor of Forest. 2 to 1 big chances taking place for Forest, but both of them have their big chances each. 2 offsides of Nottingham Forest, 2 Aston Villa's, none. Actually, I have the tackles already. I just take this out. Thank you very much. And then as interceptions, 7-7 each, and blocks 3-3 each. The MVP for this game was Stefan Ortega with 4 saves, 0.79 expected goals on target faced, and goals prevented. 2 diving saves, 1 save inside the box, 1 eye claim, 9 recoveries. I mean, you can say that he and Emi Martinez were impressive in that game up until the penalty point. And even then, I just have the feeling of like, yeah, this is such a tightly game that feels like one of these two Kagubis will have to show up in this game, and Stefan Ortega shows up. So overall, I feel like right now we're going to ourselves a really close game in at Villa Park. It's going to be massive, massive 6 days for both teams. Although both of them will have Premier League games to face each other. Most notably, Aston Villa facing against Tottenham this weekend. But after that, it'll be a really interesting thing to see which of these two teams will make it to the finals in Istanbul, along with the winner of Braga versus Freiburg. SC Braga versus Freiburg from the Estadio Municipal de Braga in Portugal. And it was a fascinating game. By the way, I was watching the Villa Nottingham Forest game with the Crystal Palace Shakhtar Donetsk game, of course, because I wanted to focus on the Premier League teams. That's pretty much why. And I kind of have that Braga Freiburg kind of like downstairs. But I did watch the goals, And I have to say, if you're a Freiburg fan, what a cruel, cruel way to lose a game. Now, Tinkan scored in the 8 minute and Freiburg equalized in 16 minutes, and then the game going all the way into stoppage time. When a shot from like about a couple of few yards got saved by the keeper, holding his hand, and got saved by the keeper, but did not even get to claim it. Therefore, the ball ricochets to Douglas, who just slotted it home in the 90 plus 2 minutes. That is how the game ended. And Braga will go into Germany with a really slight 2-1 lead going into Freiburg. Now the possession stats 80, 58, 42 in favor of Braga, 13 to 10 shots in favor of Braga, 62 shots on target in favor of Braga, 2.39 to 1.31 in favor of Braga. Accurate passes 425, 86% to 279, 80% in favor of Braga. 14 to 12 fouls in favor of Freiburg, 3 to 2 yellow cards in favor of Freiburg, 3 to 1 corners in favor of Braga, and then keeper saves 1 to 4 in favor of Freiburg. 17 to 11 tackles in favor of Braga, 15 to 19 clearances, 19 in favor of Freiburg, 3 to 1 chance, big chances, and 3 to 1, 3 in favor of Braga. One big chance miss, two offsides each, 12 to 11 interceptions in favor of Braga, and 3 to 2 blocks in favor of Freiburg. This was absolutely an all Freiburg in terms of stats and pretty much in terms of all the momentum of the game. As I said, I didn't watch much of the game, of course, nor the highlights, but I believe that Braga actually dominated the game from like the second half onwards, and it got the goal that it needed. And of course, like the Villa Forest game, it is going to be an even game going into this one. It's pretty poised. Victor Gomez, the right back for Braga, is my MVP. He's got an assist, two chances created, 78 touches, six touches in the opposition box, four passes in the final third, eight defensive contributors, four tackles, two clearances, two interceptions, five recoveries, 86%, which is 6-7 ground duel one. So yeah, I think you say that both of the Europa League semifinals are going to be really poised going into next Tuesday. And now it is time to us to move to the Conference League, and we're going to go to Cinerez Arena in Poland, not in Ukraine for reasons. I think you all know what the reasons are. Shakhtar Donetsk are played as the home team versus Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace played the most Crystal Palace game you will ever imagine, in which they decided, oh, we're going to give up 71% of the possession, but still win the game 3-1. That is literally Crystal Palace MO DNA from the jump. And it was not a pretty performance by Crystal Palace standards. It was not a pretty performance. They did concede in the 47-minute to Ochorenko corner kick just after halftime. The first half was pretty much a tightly affair. Papri saw with the very first attack of the game, like literally the first few seconds of the game, Papri saw scored the goal, and it was 1-0 Crystal Palace. And anyway, I told you about the equalizer. And then Kamada, who by the way was my MVP of this game, scored in the 58th minute and was optimistic. And then from a counter-attacking play, Strand Larsen, another Norwegian about to go to the World Cup, just calmly, coolly composed to slot in an incredible goal from an incredible counter-attack from Crystal Palace. And it was 3-1 at the night. The Crystal Palace fans are singing at the away end, and now they could go into Selhurst Park 3-1 against a really good Ukrainian team in Shakhtar Donetsk, who once upon a time was one of the brilliant teams in all of Europe, of course. And they will have an opportunity to go to Selhurst Park with a 3-1 lead, an opportunity to make it to their very first European finals. And pretty much what could be Oliver Glasner's last season. This is absolutely a fascinating story if you are a Crystal Palace fan, if you're a South London fan. This is absolutely incredible. Now let's look at the stats. As I mentioned, 71-29 in favor of Shakhtar, 16-10 shots in favor of Shakhtar, 1 to 7 shots on target in favor of Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace have 7 shots on target, despite the fact they lost almost 30, 7/10 of our possession. Jesus. The XG though is pretty much a fascinating story. 2.31 for Crystal Palace to 1.06. 2.31 to 1.06. That is incredible. That is just the scoreline kind of reflects to that, of course. And then accurate passes shot out the next 472 to Crystal Palace 158. This is John. Crystal Palace had 158 accurate passes. They can't even manage to get like 200 accurate passes. It's wild. That is Crystal Palace counter-attacking play in a nutshell. 13-7 fouls in favor of Crystal Palace, 3-2 yellow cards in favor of Shakhtar Donetsk. 13-1 corners, and by the way, the one corner that I think Crystal Palace scored from was probably their only corner tonight, including that Shakhtar Donetsk scored that they also scored. The fact that Crystal Palace only one corner the entire game is just jarring. 3-0 keeper saves. Dan Henderson did not even make a save, of course, in his entire game. Doesn't matter. 26-10 tackles in favor of Crystal Palace. 31 clearances, the 14 in favor of Crystal Palace. 5-2 big chances in favor of Crystal Palace. 3-1 big chances missed in favor of Crystal Palace. One offside to Teo Shakhtar Donetsk. 6-5 interceptions in favor of Crystal Palace. 92 blocks in favor of Palace. Well, I think I have interceptions already, so I think we can cut there. Let's just cut this out and tell you about the MVP, which is Daiichi Kamada, the Japanese international, came off the bench with 34 touches, a goal and assist, of course, for the Strand Larsen goal. 79%, which is 19-24 of accurate passes, 4 passes in the final third, 3 tackles, 5 recoveries, 80% or 4/5 of a ground duel won. He was everyone on the pitch. He was the most important player on that Crystal Palace team that calmed themselves after getting an equalizer and just like being composed, being in the game. And I listen, let's be honest. After the second goal that Crystal Palace scored, I don't even remember Shakhtar Donetsk even done anything from like the rest of the game onwards. They to every man, Crystal Palace played their part, and it was such a fascinating game, of course, to show that this is a team-wide effort, and it shows. And also, by the way, if Crystal Palace make it to the finals, what a job that Oliver Glasner has done to elevate Crystal Palace to like mid-table quantity, to like FA Cup winners, and then now Conference League winners. Although, let's be honest, they should have been Europa League this year. That is more of a ownership and UEFA's problem rather than their problem. But if Crystal Palace made it to the Europa Conference League final and win, I think you could say that's all right with the world. Although the world right now in sports is a little bit chaotic right now with greed and everything like that. I will do a follow-up video coming up on Monday, I guess. So you're going to find out. Rayo Vallecano versus Strasbourg, 1-0 favor of Rayo Vallecano at the Estadio de Vallecas, which is pretty much a pretty good stadium with all the houses and apartments going on there. It's a pretty unique stadium. Alamo with the only goal in the 54th minute, so not much to talk about. I don't see the game as much, so it is what it is. Possession, 53-47 in favor of Rayo Vallecano, 24-5 shots in favor of Strasbourg. Like they out dominate them. Strasbourg have no shots on target. And the XG pretty much said it best. 0.21 in favor of Strasbourg, 1.41 for Vallecano. And the game is only 1-0. If you're Strasbourg and you see these stats, you must be thinking to yourself, how the hell is just still 1-0? Like Vallecano, I think I saw part of the final minutes, of course, of the game. And they had like a 1v2 opportunity. And after they scored this goal, it'll be 2-0. They'll be, I'm not saying in the driver's seat, because you never know in European football, but they will be in like the comfortable position to like win this game. And the fact that they did not, it just absolutely boggles me. The fact that it's still 1-0. If you're Strasbourg, you're counting your lucky stars and feel like you still have a chance. 317 accurate passes to 262, 83-76%, 15-14 fouls in favor of Vallecano, 5-4 in favor of Strasbourg in terms of yellow cards, 5-1 Via Vallecano's corners to Strasbourg, 7 goalkeeper save. I mean, that's pretty much the reason why this game is 1-0. 7 goalkeeper save. My goodness. 17-15 tackles, 20-21 in clearances in favor of Strasbourg. 1 big chance for Rayo Vallecano and missed. No offsides in this game. I've never seen a game that is less offside. That's amazing. 10 interceptions each, 7-2 blocks in favor of Strasbourg. My MVP for this game is Issa Palazon, who's an attacking midfielder for Rayo Vallecano with 51 touches and an assist for that goal. 6 chances created, 82% accurate passes, or 28-34. 4 recoveries, 50% of the ground duels won, or 4-8. And also 50% of the aerial duels won. 4 passes in the final third. So, yeah, you can say that this game, this tie is not over yet. And if you're Strasbourg, you got to be a little bit better in the second leg coming up. If you're Crystal Palace, you must be thinking you're 90 minutes away from historical finals that the likes that any Crystal Palace have ever seen in like the last 10 years. If you would have told every Crystal Palace fan that you're going to be winning an FA Cup, winning the Community Shield, and then make it to a Conference League or a European final, you would have been slapped at by every Crystal Palace fan onto earth. You're 90 minutes away to doing so, and you gotta need to they need to buckle down. Like they got a Premier League game coming up, and we all know that Crystal Palace European and Premier League last couple of games have not been great. So I think this is more like Crystal Palace just getting ready for the biggest games of their lives if they make it to the finals, of course. So that is it for the Europa League and the Europa Conference League. A little bit of closeness and a little bit of certainty in one of them. What do you think about the matches? Do you believe that Crystal Palace will go through? Do you believe that Aston Villa can overcome the lead over Nottingham Forest? Can Freiburg actually make the finals? Can, Rayo Vallecano can make an historical final as well? What do you think in the comments? Sound down in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe to more of these, and I will see you all next time. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.